Okay, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We shouldn't be here too long, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Steve right away.
All right. Yes, I'm going to start with a brief legislative update, let you know where things sit. So there were two bills that have already passed that I want to briefly cover. One was a bill requiring a study of interrupted military service credit, and what that bill was specific to the Left 2 board, and that it's passed and been signed. So the board, you will be studying this topic during the upcoming interim. At the last meeting of the Select Committee on Pension Policy, I spoke to the Select Committee and told them about the study and mentioned to them that the statute that covers interrupted military service applies to all the plans, and that the policy issues that came up related to this bill also apply to all the other plans. And so the Select Committee decided that they would also study this issue, and they'll be looking at it from the other plans. We'll be looking at it. You guys will be looking at it from the perspective of Left 2, and then we'll be coordinating that throughout the interim. We will have intro presentation on that at the first regular board meeting. I'll talk a little bit later on about when that will be, but that is on the agenda, and it's a topic that the board last looked at about 10 years ago. Now, the other bill that has passed and been signed into law that I want to briefly mention is deals with emergency medical technicians membership in LEF. There was a bill in 2005 that added EMTs to the definition of firefighter, and there was some uncertainty after that bill came out about whether or not different employers were covered by the bill, specifically public hospital districts. And there was another type of district up north where they had EMTs, but they weren't sure if they met the definition of employer. The public hospital districts have been working with DRS over the years to get some of those issues clarified, and DRS did determine that public hospital districts are a district within the meaning of the LEF employer definition. The Public Hospital District Association was appealing that, and then they had taken the final decision by DRS to court in Chelan. However, the Hospital District Association was worried that, and I think in all fairness, stakeholder groups were also worried that what will a court come up with? And so the Hospital District Association worked this session with the State Council of Firefighters to come up with an agreed upon bill. That bill got amended a little bit in the House at the last minute. There was something added on by the House, and that new piece, not 100% sure what the impacts of it are, but the final bill was signed. It'll become effective July 1. There's a handful of about a dozen, maybe a little bit less, of public hospital districts around the state that'll be affected. Some of them have one or two EMTs. They don't have a lot of emergency medical service response. They might have a little bit, but not much. But a couple of others, there's a couple of employers, they're like an EMS only district. So all they do is EMS, and for them that'll be a bigger impact. The bill moves them into LEF prospectively, and it gives members the option to purchase service credit back to 2005 when the prior bill was effective. that'll make it administratively, it would make it much more easier for the districts to handle the impact, as opposed to like a court decision where membership, if it was granted, would have been mandatory and retro. Now the members will have a little bit more flexibility to decide whether they want in and how much of their past service they want added. The employers will also have more time to administer the introduction of their members into LEF and to pay for their share of the contributions. So that bill, the beginning of it, again, it'll be effective July 1. DRS right now is beginning the work with the hospital districts to get them to report their salary and compensation data to DRS, and to get DRS the contact information for the individual members. DRS will reach out to those members individually, and then once they have the data that they need, they'll also be doing the estimates for these members to cost of purchasing their past service. Now, there was one other study that I wanted to just briefly highlight. In the House budget, it wasn't in the Senate budget, but in the House budget, there was also a requirement for the LEF 2 board to study the issue of allowing tribal law enforcement officers membership, providing them with the opportunity for membership in LEF. And so we'll be monitoring that to see if that ends up in the final budget, and we'll be able to let you know that whether or not that's something that will be on your agenda at the first regular meeting of the board after, we'll give you ledge updates as well. But that's when we'll first talk to you about the planning of that, if in fact it is included in the final state budget.
Quick question, Steve.
Yeah.
From Jason. On the two studies, are there any fiscal notes attached to that gives the board money to do those studies, or are we expected to pay for that ourselves?
The interruptive military service credit study did not have any funds attached to it, but that's an issue that's sort of kind of not, it's an issue, for instance, the board already worked on their own before. So, and it's not a type of issue where we'd be expecting to need additional resources. So, no fiscal note with that one, but no real concern about the lack of a fiscal note with that one either. We'll be able to do that one with our team here. We'll be able to cover that one, Jason.
Okay.
The tribal study, though, is different. And it is, I would expect that we'll need advice from outside counsel, and we will also need advice from the Attorney General's office, in addition to our regular AG services that they provide. The House budget did include $50,000 to help cover the costs of that. So, but we won't know for sure whether the study or the funds actually happen until the budget's final. But the House budget, Jason, did have $50,000, and I think that is a realistic amount. We ended up spending about close to that on the LEF 2 merger study last interim, and we didn't get any funds for that study. So this one, I think given the complexity of some of these issues, I think that'll be about right.
Very good. Thank you, Steve.
Now, a couple of other notes about session. The second special session has begun, and it's scheduled to end June 21st. Between now and June 21st, there will be a revenue forecast on June 20th. Now, during the first special session, there was a group of legislators that were meeting to work on the McCleary decision, some of the education funding issues. And I think when the first special session started, there was a belief that they would kind of wait until after the June revenue forecast to see where the where the final budget numbers were going to line up and finish up then. Now there's been a lot more information. The Revenue Forecast Council will not give a early release of their June revenue forecast, but a lot of the people that track the revenue forecasts and the amateur forecasters, if you will, they kind of understand what some of the inputs are to the revenue forecast, and those are all public. And there's a general consensus or fear has arisen among at least among the amateur forecasters, that the June revenue forecast will be down and not up. And so that's created a bit of urgency maybe in terms of trying to finish the budget before June 20th. Now, I don't know that that will be possible. There's still a lot of issues to work out. But with respect to Left 2, there's a couple of issues that are still in play. Besides the study that I mentioned, the Senate budget had a couple of pieces. One in particular, shifting the state's share of the 50-30-20 cost split to local governments and making it a 50-50 cost split. The last time I talked with you about the Senate budget, wasn't quite sure where that piece was going to go. And even today, I can't tell you. There have been a number of legislators who have indicated that it is that's something that's negotiable, if you will. But then there's also staff people who've said, no, the work that's being done is more in lines of making this happen. So we may not know until the very last days of session whether or not that cost-sharing split takes place or not. The hardcore budget negotiations, once those begin, and again, those are also very private, so I'm not expecting to know what's going on or to be able to tell you what's going on with some of those negotiations until probably the very end. Another issue that's likely to come up along with the 50-30-20 split, although merger was not in either the House or the Senate budget, it is an issue that has been priced, and several legislators have said that they believe that issue is still in play in terms of possibly coming up in the final budget negotiations. Don't know how accurate that is, but I'll keep you posted. Now, there's two things that I need to make you aware of regarding the end of session. First off is the June 28th meeting of the Left 2 board. At this point in time today, I can't tell you whether session's going to be done or not. So I don't know whether our next meeting will be an electronic meeting similar to this, where we're giving you an update about where things sit with respect to the budget, or if session has ended, then that will be the first sort of regular meeting of the interim, and we would be able to give you a full session update about what happened and a full review of all the potential items that are on your agenda for the upcoming interim and get your priorities so we can start working on the work plan for the upcoming interim. We will keep you posted, obviously, between now and June 28th about what type of meeting to expect at June. But it may not be clear until just literally a week before, or perhaps even days before the June 28th meeting, whether session will be finished or not. Separate and apart from the board meeting, the uncertainty about the budget being adopted by the end of June, all state agencies, and a reminder to all the board members, the Left 2 board is a state agency. all state agencies have been required to notify employees about the potential end of the fiscal biennium or start of July 1 with no budget, and agencies have begun contingency planning and will be continuing to do contingency planning alongside the work that's being done with respect to the budget. We'll keep you updated again as far as that goes. But at this point in time, I can't tell you for sure what would happen to the left board on July 1. I know before session started, there were a number of legislators who were already concerned about the possibility of being able to finish before July 1, and they expressed to me that they had a plan for dealing with July 1. But what that exactly is, the details of it, I don't know, and I don't know what will happen. But we will keep you posted about any contingency impacts. For instance, if there's no budget July 1, does the board have to shut down? Or will there be any employees that will be asked or required to stay on after July 1, like a skeleton crew or anything like that? It's possible that there could be a temporary operating budget while the budget's being finalized, depending on how close. There's a whole range of possibilities out there. And today I can't tell you which one is most likely of all of those, but I will tell you that we will keep that posted. Now, with respect to the budget, there still have not been any proposals or any hints at proposals that the overall contributions to Left 2 would be reduced. So the only proposal that's been public anyway regarding Left 2 contributions is just that 50-30-20 split change. There haven't been proposals to reduce the state funding to Left 2 or reduce the rates to all the members, for instance, that have come up in the past. Similarly, though, there have been no discussions about adding in the payment that's scheduled to be required in September to the benefit improvement account. That was not in any of the not in the House, Senate, or Governor's budget, and there haven't been any indications that it will be in the final budget as well. Certainly not as a general fund state contribution, but I haven't even heard any indication that there was interest in adding that payment in as a payment out of the Left 2 fund like they did a couple years ago in the supplemental budget. The only other piece that we're tracking was a change in the governor's budget regarding to contributions by local governments for special events, that the local governments would be on the hook for collecting the state share of contributions. For instance, if police and fire are required to work shifts covering, say, for instance, a Seahawks game, that to the extent that creates overtime costs, that the state share of those overtime costs is collected by local governments and paid by local governments. That we'll let you know if that shows up in the budget. It doesn't affect the overall financing of Left 2, but it would be an impact on local government stakeholders for Left 2, so that's one we're tracking. And if there's any other, if you have any other questions about legislation or about the budget or about session, go ahead and fire those off now. Okay. Then the next piece I want to talk about briefly is the there's a question from the audience if the board members are okay.
Good morning. Thank you. Thanks for the good report, Mr. Nelson. I'm Roy Orlando. I'm a director with the Retired Firefighters of Washington. Mr. Nelson, you commented in the legislative update that there was a merger that may still be in play as part of the budget. Do you have any indication what that may be?
No. Similar to let me be clear. There haven't been any proposals about a budget. There have been a few individual legislators who've indicated to me that they think a TERS 1, Left 1 merger could still end up being a part of the final Senate budget. But that may be just speculation, if you will. I can't say that there's any certainty or likelihood of that happening. It has not. There haven't been any hearings on it, but that's one piece that I've heard. And then, although I haven't heard this in a while back, when at the start of session, when there was uncertainty about whether or not the Left 1 TERS 1 merger was going to be reintroduced, there were some other legislators who at that time said, if a Left 1 TERS 1 merger is reintroduced, then it would probably generate interest in discussing a Left 1 Left 2 merger as a counterproposal. But again, I haven't heard anything more about that. So the point I was trying to make more is not that there is a likelihood. I think the possibility, it would be extraordinarily unlikely, but I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware. Once the end negotiations come about for a budget during a session like this, especially when hasn't been a lot of public releases about kind of how close they're getting or anything like that, it just creates a lot of uncertainty. You don't know what is or is not in play or how likely some of these things are, perhaps until a week or even days before the final budget is released. And that's the main thing I'm trying to tell you right now is, as of today, I can't tell you with a whole lot of certainty what will be in and what will be out. Other than the ones I just talked about, I feel fairly confident that the board rates will be included in one form or another, and that the piece about that the revenue stream will not be included in the budget.
Okay. Thank you very much for the clarification.
For the administrative update, the DRS joint rulemaking project with DRS has been moving along great. There's a hope that the final rules for duty disabilities will be finished up this summer. DRS is in the process of beginning a pilot project as well to have outside review of some complex disability cases, and so one of the goals will be to have the rules in place before the outside party begins that, so that they'll have a framework to work from. And again, that's been very cooperative, and good progress has been made. So I wanted to give kudos to DRS for that and for their partnership on this project and their inclusion of board input on the review of the complex disability cases as well. So separate from the rulemaking project, there will be a project that's going to start getting ramped up here pretty quick on the implementation of the EMT bill. I've already been asked to come up and talk to some of the locals where the EMTs might be affected, and I will coordinate with DRS about who's got questions and what kind of questions they are, and they'll be coordinating with me in terms of the implementation of that, so that to make sure that the employers and the members are kind of all hearing the same message. And then again, once DRS gets their addresses, DRS will be handling the communication with the members one-on-one. But a lot of these members, a few of these groups, they are members of PERS, so they have some idea of what a public pension plan is. But a lot of these hospital district EMTs, they're not in any plan at all. And so for them, they'll have a lot of questions, not just about the implementation of the bill, but about what it means, what is left to, and what does that mean for them. And so there'll be a pretty intensive education process that will be going on over the next several months regarding the implementation of that EMT bill, and we'll have that coordinated with DRS, and we'll be able to let you guys know what DRS is doing to reach out to those members and employers. Other outreach activities that have taken place here recently, there was a group up, the Seattle firefighters have been started a regular once or twice a year program where they bring in different speakers to talk about retirement issues, and it's a chance for people approaching retirement to get all their various questions answered, including questions about left to. So they had one of these a while back, and Paul went to it. They just had one here recently that I went to answer questions about left to, how their pension, the purchase of annuity, all those different types of things that come up for members nearing retirement. You may recall from the reports last session, last interim, we've got over a quarter of left to members are actually eligible to retire today. And within the next 5 years, we've got probably a third more of the membership that will become eligible to retire in the next 5 years. So there is a lot of interest in pension issues, both whether that's related to deferred comp accounts or to actually to the left to, how to coordinate those. And it's different from member to member and from employer to employer. But City of Seattle's been doing that. There was also the State Council of Firefighters had their educational seminar. Ryan and I were at that, had a table there with materials and also answering questions. The Young Firefighters Conference also took place since our last meeting. Tammy and Tim were at that, had a table and were answering questions. The Association of State Police Chiefs and the Fire Commissioners had their annual conference, and Tammy and Paul had a table at those conferences and answered questions. And then WACOPS just had their spring meeting at the last week, and I went down there one morning just to give them a legislative update that was very similar to the legislative update that I just gave you. Let's see, that is all that I had as far as administrative stuff, unless there are any questions. Okay, again, then the final item is that the next meeting is June 28th. If the budget has been finalized and session is done, that will be a regular meeting where we will do a session review and an interim preview to start getting input from you on the work plan for the upcoming interim. If session is still ongoing, then we'll plan on having a meeting like today with a electronic, with a session update and an admin update, and the first regular meeting then would be in July. With that, if there are any final questions.
Okay, hearing no one, thank you all for calling in. I appreciate it, and the meeting is adjourned.